Alrighty guys, welcome back to Star Wars Review. Today I'm reviewing The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episode 14, Flash Strike, which was directed by Nate Villanueva and written by Matt Mitchevitz and was released on April 24th, 2024, which I enjoyed the episode. I do wish there was maybe a little more to it, as I feel like there's a lot to cover in the final episode next week, but I still enjoyed a lot from the episode. I continue to really love Rampart in every scene. But I also thought there was some good Omega and Echo moments with Emery also. But I'm just going to dive right into the episode, which starts with the Bad Batch and Rampart preparing for the science vessel to exit hyperspace and, go into orbit, which they come up with a plan to detach from it and land in the jungle. But before they detach, we see Scorch report to Hemlock that the Bad Batch infiltrated the orbital station and might be tracking the science shuttle. So Hemlock orders to send a few ships to, monitor airspace and whatnot once the science vessel gets into orbit. And once the science vessel gets into orbit, the Bad Batch detach and then, get attacked by the, I think it was V-Wings. And so, they have to go into evasive maneuvers and whatnot. But they do end up getting hit and have to make a emergency exit from the ship by attaching themselves to the rappel cables and then lowering into the jungle and then detaching, which we see Wrecker and Crosshair go first and it works. But then Hunter and Rampart go, and Rampart is very upset about it, thinking he's going to die. And he is kind of right, as when their cables drop, his ends up getting jammed. So Hunter shoots it and makes Rampart fall, but Hunter catches him and then detaches and lands on the ground. But while this was going on, we see inside the vault as Omega and the others feel the rumble of the laser cannons going off, which the kids kind of wonder what's happening, but Omega realizes what is, that her brothers are here to rescue her. But we then see in the observation area of the vault where Emery and Dr. Scalder get alerted about the infiltration, and so Emery leaves to go lock down the lab and tells Scalder to look after the children, which Scalder says the specimens are of no worry. But this whole time we see Echo was aboard the science vessel, which at first we see him downloading some data from a terminal, and he then takes a TK Trooper's uniform as disguise, but he then gets confronted by a RA-7 protocol droid, which he ends up taking out, but he then takes its hand so he can, attach it to his, missing hand thing, and so he can, blend in a little more. But he then starts to leave the ship when he realizes that Hemlock has ordered the science vessel to be searched, so he escapes out the droid chute he came in from and is able to slip away deeper into the base, which he eventually finds a terminal where he downloads a map of the base, and he finds the location of Nalase's lab, so he starts heading there. But in the jungle, we see Crosshair and Wrecker looking for Hunter and Rampart, which we see Crosshair talk about his escape from Tantus, and how Omega chose to rescue him, and so now he owes her, to rescue her. But they eventually find Hunter, which Wrecker asks if Rampart made it, which Hunter says, unfortunately, yes, which was great, but, obviously Rampart hears that and is a little ticked off by it. But they then notice that a search party is after them, so they head deeper into the jungle, where we see Rampart kind of slouching and falling behind, and Crosshair tells him to keep up, when Rampart tells him, you used to believe good soldiers follow orders, which Crosshair says it depends on who's giving those orders, and reminds Rampart that the Empire betrayed them both. But Rampart says, you can't believe you can actually fight the Empire, and says Crosshair is a lot like him, loyal to no one but themselves, which Crosshair tells him that he changed, and then walks away, as Rampart menacingly says under his breath, sure you have. But we then see them get to a small cliffside, I guess, which they'll need to climb up, and while the Bad Batch kind of decide on what to do exactly, we see Rampart go and rest on the ground, but he ends up laying right next to this creature which we actually saw this creature in the earlier episodes in the season, which I guess they're called a Drax. But it starts to wake up, and Rampart notices as the Bad Batch try to get him to slowly walk away, which at first he does, and then he tells them to shoot it, but they don't want to because it'll alert the Empire of, their location. But the creature gets up and Rampart starts running away, and so the Bad Batch have to fight the creature, which does alert the Empire of their location, but it ends up working in the Bad Batch's favor as the Drax starts attacking the Imperial Patrol, allowing the Bad Batch to slip away. But we see Crosshair wonder where Rampart is, which we then see him continuing to run away, but he ends up tripping and then gets caught by another Imperial Patrol. But in the vault, we see Omega with the other children who are kind of wondering what's going on and why their vitals haven't been taken yet, which Omega sees this as an opportunity to go into that shaft area place inside the walls and kind of scope the area out. But she tells the other kids to stall Dr. Scalder and the droids if she's not back yet. And so we see her go inside the walls and into the inner shafts area as there's these rails that are shooting the blood sample down and whatnot. And so Omega kind of has to get out of the way of them. But while she's in there, Dr. Scalder comes to do the blood work on the kids. And so we see them try to stall her. But during this, we see Omega come across a vent, which looks out into this big room where we see the Zillo Beast is being held. And we see the Imperials doing some electrical experiments on it. I assume trying to harness its electrical powers we saw in the season 2 episode. But this ends up giving Omega an idea, so she heads back to her room and gets there right in the nick of time as Dr. Scalder enters, which I really enjoyed this scene. I'm happy to see the Zillo Beast again and how they might end up playing a big part in the finale. But I also enjoyed the tension of the scene of Omega getting back to her room in time. But then one of my favorite scenes of the episode, we see Echo get to Nalase's lab, where he starts looking through the info on the blood sample testing thingy, where he finds info on a bunch of clones. But then Omega, which is when Emery comes in and confronts Echo, saying that troopers aren't allowed in here, which Echo tries to brush off as a special patrol. But Emery realizes his hand and knows it's Echo, and calls him by name, saying that Omega told her about him. And she introduces herself to him, and Echo says the same thing. Omega told him a lot about her. But Emery then says Omega said the Bad Batch would be coming back for her, which he says he's not just there to rescue Omega, but all the other clones they've held prisoner doing experiments on, which Emery says she was just doing her job. But Echo then takes his helmet off and challenges her on how she could do this when she's a clone herself, and then says Omega saw something in her and he wants to believe she's right, so he asks her to tell him where Omega is, which she says the vault, but then says he won't be able to get there without her help. And she then says, if we're going to free the children, you're going to have to trust me, which confuses Echo, wondering what other children, which Emery says there are more children in the vault than just Omega. But like I said, I really like this scene, seeing Emery finally start to stand up for what's right. But I also liked Echo's words to her and what he says. Also liked how it plays the clone theme from the Clone Wars, so pulled on those nostalgia strings there, and then they end up playing the theme again during the credits. But the episode then ends with another scene of Omega in the vault speaking with the other kids who question her on why she took so long, which she says she found something and has a plan, but will need their help. And that's where the episode ends. Like I said, I enjoyed it. Sets up the final episode. I do feel like there is a lot to cover in that episode, so I wish there was maybe a little bit more in this episode, but I'd assume they'll end up covering a lot of stuff in the final episode. So yeah, but my grade for this episode is going to be a B+. So yeah, but next I will review episode 15, The Cavalry Has Arrived, the series finale. So check that out then. But in the meantime, check out my reviews on the first 13 episodes and all my other videos. But I've been Star Wars Review, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
I was wrong. We can't just walk away. Not with the Empire imprisoning the kid. Secure her in a cell. Omega's been waiting for us a long time. Our mission